It's That Skydive Sim Guy podcast where we discuss skydiving stories as well as give some great tips, whether it's the real world or the virtual world. This podcast is made possible by SkydiveSim, the world's most advanced skydiving simulator. Hey, it's That Skydive Sim Guy here today with President of USPA, Chuck Akers. How are you, Chuck?
Good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me. Give me a little bit background about you.
Skydiving wise, it would be first jump June 14th, 1985, a little small Cessna drop zone outside of Indianapolis, which is now Skydive Indiana or Skydive Indianapolis. I forget which. Skydive Indiana, I think. And been skydiving ever since, 7,000 jumps. Live just outside Houston, Texas, in the same market where you happen to live. So I'm blessed that I get to visit with you on a fairly regular basis. And married, 2 kids, and still loving skydiving and serving on the USPA board.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that you're at the DZ I go to the most. I know we met at Spaceland, and you actually organized my 200 jump, I remember. It was years ago, but you organized a group of us to go up. I don't know if you even remember that.
Probably. In fact, there's probably video of it somewhere, right?
It is. So, 1985, that's a long time. Can you tell me what was going through your mind on your first skydive?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's easy. You don't forget that one. I actually went for my first jump because the guy I worked with wanted to try it and wanted somebody to go with it. Rob Carpenter, still in contact with Rob these days. And we went out to the skydiving center. We'd been told about this tandem skydiving. The guy on the phone told us about it. We go out there, and we had a little while to wait before it was our turn. And one of the things that enthralled me about the whole concept of making this first skydive was that I was watching experienced jumpers come in from the landing area that was literally within, 50 feet of where we were sitting. And they were all hooping and hollering and high-fiving and doing all kinds. I mean, these folks were elated. Well, this was all pre-internet and YouTube. And I mean, I had never seen skydiving. I think very few people actually had at that point, just, Joe Citizen. And so when I saw those people coming in from the landing area, I told my buddy, I said, I don't know what they were doing up there. I go, but I want to do that. I go, because these people are just giddy with the amount of fun they just had. And sure enough.
So before you actually did your first jump, you wanted to become a skydiver?
No, I had never even thought about it.
But when you saw those people coming down,
when I saw those folks
you hadn't
walking
done
in,
your first tandem yet, right?
I was very intrigued. I was like, this looks like, just seeing the expressions on their faces. My thought was this looks like something that I'm really looking forward to. All of a sudden, I was just in line to go make a tandem jump, but all of a sudden, I'm making a connection with what these folks are doing. And sure enough, it was fantastic. Landed, asked my instructor when they taught the ground schools because I wanted to learn how to do it for myself. And the rest is history. I never left the sport. Been involved in it ever since, and never regretted it for a day.
Yeah, definitely. There's a certain aura skydivers have. I remember when I started, I feel like I carried myself differently than after I had, say, 100, 200 jumps. And the more you go, it just, you can definitely feel that. And they, for the most part, they're happy, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about skydiving for I think a lot of us without even realizing it is that the longer we skydive and the more the deeper into our culture and our family we become, the more normal it seems to us. It still seems very abnormal or very extreme to a lot of people in the world, but to us, it's beyond sport. It's what we love. I was trying to describe skydiving to somebody one time, and I said, some people say that skydiving is a matter of life and death. I said, but it's actually much more important than that. And they were a little confused by the comment, but I think, skydivers would get that joke. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I think as far as I'm concerned, we're all here to stay. I mean, I know I'm all in. So is my family.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, me for one, I always tell people you have to do at least one tandem in your life. Even if you think you're scared, just try to get past it and at least do one tandem in your life. It will change the way you look at life for sure.
Yeah, I talk to the tandems a lot out at the skydiving center, Most folks know that you and I jump at Spaceland in Houston. It's a very big, busy drop zone. And so I have an opportunity to chat with the tandems from time to time. And I always try to instill upon them, I'll say, your second jump won't do this to you and your 10,000th jump won't do this to you. I said, but your first jump is going to change everything about you forever. And they kind of look at you like,
it does.
How serious could this guy be? Is he just, loading me up, with skydiving protocols? And like, no, it's serious. And so many of them will tell you after the fact, you're like, wow, it does. I know it did for me.
It did for me as well. And I mean, you're right. That first jump is just, it changes you. You look at the sky differently after that. I was smiling for probably a whole week after that first jump.
Staring at the sky at the stoplights.
It's like I was there. I was up there and I came all the way down and I'm okay. So it's pretty amazing. Speaking of amazing, you've done some amazing stuff. Being USPA president, I think, for 6 years now. You've done some great stuff for the sport. Tell us a little bit.
It's as far as being the USPA president, I consider that a task and not necessarily a title. Somebody needs to be the president, and I took the torch, so I was expected to carry it. But the board itself, we've been so productive over the last 2 and 3 years. This is the end of my third term coming up here. And so I was on the board one term before I was the president. So I got an opportunity to participate as a new director, learning how everything worked. And this board has been so incredibly productive. We've taken on a lot of tasks, like some of the most current stuff we're doing is the SIM rewrite, Skydiver Information Manual rewrite. It was just the layout and some of the verbiage and some of the structure was kind of antiquated to the way people are learning today. So we try to stay up to date with our customer. So the SIM rewrite's a huge project. We have a canopy task force that's actually not pie in the sky stuff. One of the things that we realized a while back was that, even though 50% plus or minus of our fatalities come from people that already have a good parachute over their head, we didn't have any real specific guidance on canopy progression structure. We were getting people through the B license. Obviously, there's a lot of canopy control work as a student and as a young skydiver, but nothing structured beyond just real fundamental stuff. And with the performance envelope of the canopies that we jump continually increasing in their capabilities, and therefore also the need to understand how they fly and to fly them well. So we thought we should move some of that training forward, provide more canopy work for the A license proficiency, and then add some to that with the B license and so on, to at least add some structure to canopy control, actual canopy piloting, which is what we're all doing nowadays. If you really think about it, we have a competition called canopy piloting, but at the same time, anything over, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, you start becoming a quote unquote canopy pilot. And we're responsible to behave like canopy pilots, flying patterns, flying all that kind of stuff. So, the more canopy stuff we can do and the earlier we can do it, the better we think we're doing our job. Then in the last 6 years, there's also been a real push toward the marketing side of what USPA does. When I came onto the board, I made a snarky comment during a board meeting one time where I said I really enjoyed USPA. I thought that it was a fantastic organization. We do our jobs very, very well. And remember, I was a non-board member for 30 years before I ever got on the board. And I said in an open board meeting, I said the only issue that I see is that from an optics perspective, I said we seem like maybe we're run by a bunch of old retired military guys. And everybody laughed because it was true. Most of USPA was a lot of the influence on the board and that sort of thing were from retired military folks, former Golden Knights. Distinguished people. But they weren't very. They didn't have a lot of pizzazz. That just wasn't their style. And so I thought that we should put a little more focus on having optics that match our core audience, which is younger, a little, just a different demographic, people who are still in the young mindset. But most of USPA's correspondence was kind of in a very, more mature, more formal delivery. And so we really put a lot of focus on that. And we had Lady George join us. And then before that, Shannon Searles, who did a lot of our marketing, and both who still do. You may even know Lady George if you go to any of the competitions or see any of USPA's on-site Facebook or social media videos and that sort of thing. A lot of times it's Lady George. She's a great selfie interviewer. She does fantastic work, like literally on the fly. Shannon, it was the same way when she was doing a lot of that. A lot of her responsibilities have shifted, but still in the marketing realm. So we really try to put a focus on speaking to our core audience in a way that they want to be spoken to, and getting a lot more lively on the social media. And if you notice our social media today versus 6, 8, 10 years ago, there's a marked difference there, and it's because we understand that we need to communicate with our members in the way that our members want to be communicated to, and so that's where those are from. So
I definitely have felt that. Like, I started 8 years ago, and I've definitely seen a lot of changes. So definitely, the vibe has changed. A lot of things have changed. It does have that grab of a younger generation, it seems like, which I think it's great. I mean, we're moving on with the times, right?
Yeah, and we I mean, obviously we need, as an association, because we always have to keep in mind that, we're not skydiving as a culture. We're skydiving the Association of Skydivers, right? I mean, we have a very specific focus on what our jobs are for the skydiving community, and we try not to stray too far from that. But you can deliver the message a lot of different ways. How you package the message is completely different than what the core of the message is. And so that's where I thought we needed some work. And we've got an unbelievable staff. We do a whole lot with very little. We hire for talent, and we give them an open rein to do their jobs. Parachutist Magazine, all of our publications, all of our online stuff. Albert, our executive director, Albert Birchtold, he has a pretty good skill for hiring great people and then leaving them alone, and also feeding their creative side, because he's a little bit of a creative guy himself. So good recipe, and just an absolutely fantastic crew of the USPA that's making things happen, because it's only, I think it's like 19 or 20 people. It's really not very many.
Wow.
For all the base
a lot of work.
cover. So yeah, a lot of work, but we're efficient, and that's what our membership expects us to be.
That's great. So tell me, I'm sure you have a lot of stories. Is there a memorable story that sticks out to you that you want to share?
The one I can talk about on video. I don't know. You heard a couple of them at the drop zone, but a lot of them you can't share. Right. The skydiving, what there actually is. I don't know if he would be okay with me using. Yeah, he'd be okay. There's a guy here in the Gulf region. He actually owns Skydive Galveston. His name is Lee Keating, and he's a good dude.
I'm familiar with Lee. I jumped there quite a bit.
Yeah, he's a pretty laid back guy, a real nice, positive attitude. He's a nice man. And he used to be an instructor up in Madisonville at the Skydiving Center up there. And when I'd go drop by to do a drop zone visit, we'd always, of course, chat. And one day we were on the ground while the Cessna was up with another load, and just kind of chatting about this, that, or the other. And there's maybe a little gaggle of 6 or 8 people standing around talking. And Lee looks over to me and he says, "Hey, Chuck," he goes, "did you realize that I met you when I was like 5 years old?" And it was, I'm like, and he's, I don't know, in his 30s, maybe even his 40s by now. And I said, "When you were 5 years old," I said, what are you talking about? He goes, "You probably don't remember this." He said, "But when you were running Skydive USA, which was a drop zone that my family ran back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he said, I grew up in El Campo. It's about 20 miles from our drop zone." He said, "And my kindergarten class took a field trip to your skydiving center one day." He said, "And you accommodated us. He said it was the coolest thing. He said, you let us get up inside the big airplane and sit in the, pilot's seat and all. You showed us how the parachutes were packed and what makes them work." He said, "And it was just one of the really coolest experiences as a kid." And I'm like, "Well, I'm surprised you even remembered who I was, when you're 5 years old." I said, "But that's a really cool story." And we went on chatting about other things. And then it dawned on me that I wanted to ask him a question. And I hoped I knew the answer to it. And I said, "Lee, I got a quick question for you." I said, "You know the story about taking a field trip to my skydiving center and all that?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, did that visit have anything to do with you becoming a skydiver and then a full-time skydiving instructor? And he looked at me real cockeyed, like I should know the answer to that. And he goes, well, yeah, man, it had everything to do with that. And
Wow.
to me, that was just about the coolest skydiving story that I could imagine, that you influenced somebody that young, and then to have it come back and haunt you like that's really cool.
That is amazing. That is a very cool story. There's another story I know of you. I don't know if you can talk about it or not. I think you helped a young kid with a wish recently. I think I saw that, but that he wanted to do a tandem. Is it something we can go into?
Yeah, that's cool. It's that's a group effort thing. We USPA issues waivers for age for a variety of reasons, but for the tandem skydives, we've had a lot of requests over the years for kids who are terminally ill to see if USPA would waive the age requirement for them to make a tandem jump. And USPA got together with the manufacturers. It's probably been a couple of years ago. Don't get me lying about that. But we changed the profile there on how those waivers are issued. Used to, we would have to issue a waiver. They would have to explain to us what they wanted to do, what their reasoning was, all the documentation showing that it was a terminally ill child, all that kind of stuff. But we did a deal with Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm sure that all the manufacturers were, everybody was involved. And so it completely shifted how we issue these. So nowadays, the person wanting for their child to make the jump actually goes straight to the manufacturer. In this case, it was to Noah Watts from United Parachute Technologies, who runs their tandem program. They issue a waiver, send us a copy of it, and from that moment forward, from USPA's perspective, it's automatic. We don't have to get the board to vote on anything. So we've built a program specifically for Make-A-Wish. And a little guy named Paxton, who you can find on social under Pip's Great Adventures, or the Adventures of I'll get it in a minute. Just type in Pip's Adventures, PIPS Adventures, and Paxton is the guy's name. He's from Texas here, and his parents signed him up for Make-A-Wish. And I've never seen a Make-A-Wish kid do so many things. His parents are so committed to getting this kid out there doing stuff. And in fact, today I saw it popped up on my Facebook wall that there's a People Magazine article about him. And if you, they're on social. If you go to People Magazine's social page, Facebook page, it'll be on there. His name is Paxton. If you just type in People Magazine, Paxton would probably bring the whole thing up. And it talks about all the stuff he's doing. We hooked him up with a skydiving buddy of ours, Jeff Bowden, who owns a dive shop down in Roatan Island off the coast of Honduras, and he has a dive shop and a resort. Well, he took him scuba diving. So this kid's so it was cool for us. Noah Watts, the tandem director for United Parachute Technologies, happens to be from that San Antonio area where we set the jump up for him. We all went out to Skydive Castroville, and little Paxton made not one but two skydives with Noah. And just did a tremendous job, as did Noah, obviously. But yeah, the kid had a blast, and that's a fantastic story to talk about anytime, anywhere, because it was literally fulfilling a kid's childhood wish. So good for Paxton, and he's still with us. He's still as of today. I don't know what's the date. Call him mid-August. He's still out there. He's still out there beating the pavement and enjoying life.
That's great. Yeah, that story, when I saw it, I think I saw a video, and I was like, man, what you've done is so amazing. And I know it was a group effort, but I think you were leading that. So I just wanted to bring it up. I think it was just such an amazing story.
It's cool. It's cool to even just be a tiny little part of something that amazing. And I'm hoping that we're going to do more of that. I know that Paxton's mom and dad got a lot of responses when they posted his skydive on social media. And so hopefully we've kickstarted something. We can take it on as a USPA wide effort to reach out to these communities and maybe find drop zones that would be willing to volunteer to the effort. So there's always stuff we can do, and it's great ideas take off by themselves sometimes, like World Skydiving.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I mean it's a good cause, and it's definitely bringing some positivity to the sport. So I think it's wonderful. So you and I got together and I had you try out SkydiveSim. Actually, we did it originally, about 5 years ago when I had an alpha version of it.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't much. And then last week we got together and I had you try SkydiveSim, what it is now. And just want to get some feedback from you on what you thought when you had those goggles on.
Yeah, it's I was not expecting the realism that it delivered. I don't have a lot of experience with the virtual reality setups and all that kind of stuff, so I'm usually a little bit taken aback just by the visuals to begin with. But the feedback was what was the accuracy and the lack of any kind of lag time in the feedback was so amazing. And inside the virtual reality, the game, whatever you want to call it, inside, I was very surprised at the accuracy of the canopy responsiveness relative to reality. I got quite a few skydives, and so I'm pretty tuned into the visuals and the sensations that a person gets when they're making, or at least me, when I'm making a certain type of maneuver on a certain kind of canopy, et cetera, et cetera. And this Skydive Sim nailed it. In fact, as we discussed after I got the headset off and came back to real world, one of the things that impressed me was how the visuals were so good that you could almost get a sensory report back to you, not just visual, but you could almost feel the canopy flare. You could almost feel yourself, because of the AI, but also because the feedback loop was so accurate in the sensations. So there were a few times, as you remember, I would whip out 2 or 3 fairly robust 360s and then let the canopy fly and then take it through the motions of a flare. And what I wanted to know is both visually, because I know you can make a parachute go up, and could I make that happen, or at least completely plane out? So there's certain things technically that I was looking for, but more importantly was just how well it connected from input to feedback in such an amazingly accurate way. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't compare the experience we had last week or earlier, last week, to what we did when I first used Skydive Sim, because that was such a rudimentary version of what was to come. But what you've got out there now is just really, I mean, I want to say mind-boggling, but it's not, because it's expert coding. It's you guys being able to, and as you told me, you've gone through some stuff where you've dealt with canopy pilots, you've dealt with different people to help you design certain aspects of the sim, and they're spot on. They're spot on. I'm super excited to see what you do with it next. I didn't even get to play with everything I wanted to play with. I still want a wingsuit. And I still want to do.
We'll add that at some point. And I mean, it was nice to see how fast you picked up the canopy portion of it after you went to the tutorial, and then we were in the environment together and flying together. It's like, it was kind of fun to watch you having fun with it and flying like you actually know this canopy already, and you're just flying around with it.
Well, I think that feedback was a big part of that, because if I hadn't had good feedback, I wouldn't have felt comfortable, ripping it up just a little bit, and other than, spiraling myself into the dirt or whatever. And so it didn't take long at all for that feedback loop to make me feel very confident in flying it like a canopy. So it's just very, very impressive.
Yeah, and like you said, I can't take credit for everything. I am ex-skydiver with a D license, but I relied heavily on people that can give good feedback. Early on, we had DJ Marvin that helped me with it, and we had Daniel Tankready that also helped with building the expert setting. And one of the main people that helped me was Brian Germain, who, as you know, is a very well-known canopy pilot coach, and he helped out a lot with giving me a lot of good feedback on what he felt like it should be. So it's really a combination of getting everybody's feedback and now getting yours with, you said 39 years experience, right? So
yeah, 39. Wow. course, when I started,
Wow.
canopies flew a lot differently. So,
Yeah. But it's always great to hear back from people like yourself that have been in the sport for so long, and they put that experience that they have, and they're just like trying something new for the first time instead of being afraid of the technology and saying, okay, this is not how we do things. We haven't done it in the past, so we're not gonna even look at it.
yeah,
But you've always been very open-minded towards it.
well, as discussed the other day, well, I think if anybody, regardless of how long they've been in the sport or their age or their mindset, if you're not seeking out the next great thing toward safety, toward training, toward entertainment, for that matter, think about the wind tunnels. They're great training tools, but they all started out as
Exactly.
just this as a carnival ride. Hey, look, you can do simulated skydiving, and then we started realizing, hey, we can use this. And I'm that way about any kind of technology that can help us advance the sport and in particular the safety, but also the training aspects. You talk about, canopy pilots, people know, most people know that my son is deeply involved in the competitive canopy piloting industry. And they're, in a real highly tuned fashion, something like SkydiveSim could be very beneficial to folks because it'll spit out whatever parameters you put in for it to spit out, if that makes sense. And so as you guys get better at writing the code and making it more realistic, then it will become more realistic. So I see really great things for SkydiveSim and any technology like it in the training realm. For example, I happen to know that you can custom build a drop zone. What would you call that? The venue where the game or
Right.
where the training takes place. And you can custom build that to real drop zones and put obstacles right where they actually exist. And then
Exactly.
from there, they can make the wind go in each speed and direction they want. And they could literally have their students practice canopy patterns and, downwind turns and things like that, in a very real world environment, because they're doing it with the SkydiveSim, right over the top of their own skydiving center 20 minutes before
Right.
in the airplane. So I think
I
that
agree.
type of real world connection is super possible with SkydiveSim. And I think you're already doing some of that, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. We have Skydive San Diego in there already, and talking to some of their drop zones that are interested in putting their drop zone in there. So I don't just put them in. It's one of those things that has to be a mutual thing, because I don't want to just say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and put your drop zone in because I like it.
Yeah, but
So,
generically, didn't I hear that you also have a national army in Europe that's using SkydiveSim for training?
Polish Army, yes.
Polish
Polish
Army?
Army. I found that out from Brian Germain. He found out and he told me about it, it just made me feel so good that people are actually using it for more than I even thought. I never imagined there'd be an army saying, hey, you know what, we're going to use this product that's available to just about anybody, and we're going to use it for training our skydivers. So that's pretty amazing to
And I
know.
think that's going to have legs too. It's one thing when I'm using SkydiveSim, my brain is saying video game, right? I mean, that's what my brain is saying. It's because it
Right.
is. It's a huge, wonderful.
It is.
Everywhere you look, you're in the middle of a video game. But at the same time, the benefits from something like SkydiveSim almost can't be overstated. I mean, they just can't. And in the future, the better that technology gets, the more widespread I think the utilization will be.
I totally agree with that. So, Chuck, thank you so much for joining me on this. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and hearing the stories. I'd love to bring you back at some point and maybe talk some more. And I'd love to actually get on the headset with you and play a little bit more SkydiveSim. And hey, let's do a real world jump as well when I see you next.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's been too long. What was it, your second 200th jump we jumped skydiving
It's
together?
my 200th jump. Yeah. And that must have been about 6 years ago or so, maybe more.
How many jumps now?
I'm stuck at low 700s.
What do you mean
Because
stuck?
I slowed down a lot when COVID hit, and that's when I really went full-fledged with building SkydiveSim, which keeps me super busy. So I haven't been able to get out as much, but lately I have been forcing myself to at least go 1 day a week and jump either at Spaceland or Skydive Galveston because they're both great DZs, and I love them both for different reasons. It's like you can get on a lot more loads and land and go up again at Spaceland, but I mean, the view in Galveston is just so amazing. I don't know if you've had a chance to go there yet.
I haven't had a chance to jump there, but of course I'm affiliated with it, being the regional director down here. But I got to tell you, we are so spoiled in Texas and especially in the Houston area that we've always had great drop zones around both of, Spaceland and of course Skydive Galveston. And there's all the way down to Mustang Island. I mean, there's great drop zones all through the Southeast Texas area. So super blessed.
We are. I didn't realize how spoiled I am when I first started, actually, because Spaceland is about 35 to 40 minutes from me. And
that's blessed.
I thought that's the norm, It's like I would just go several times a week and get jumps in, but it's apparently not. A lot of people have to drive about 2-3 hours to get to a drop zone.
Yep.
And now that Skydive Galveston is letting D-licensed skydivers jump there, it's even more amazing. I'm like, I can do beach landings anytime I want, which is super nice. Yeah.
All right, Amir, I'll see you at the drop zone. Let's I agree with you. Let's get on a load together. It's been too long.
Let's do it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Love to come back anytime, brother.
Take care.